It's Monday. On Mondays, we do tier lists. On Wednesdays, we wear pink.
Yep. It's made with bits of real panther, so you know it's good.
It's quite pungent.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, it's a formidable scent. It stings the nostrils. In a good way.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm gonna be honest with you, that smells like pure gasoline.
They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
That doesn't make sense.
Hello, everybody. Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw, and my goodness, I have missed you. You may not have known that I was gone, but I was gone for like 3 or 4 days, and I am back in the saddle. I'm so happy to be here. I was planning on doing a stream today, but my daughter's sick. Things got in the way, but here we are with our tier list. Today, we are doing our lane tier list. I actually got so many great suggestions for what tier lists you guys would like to see, so I might do a couple this week, depending on how much time we have. This though is our lane tier list. First, let me tell you about our tiers. We have our god tier, of course. We only have one freaking god around here, okay? We're not God of War Ragnarok. We have our silly good tier, our S tier. I recognize they have a lot of gods. We have our A tier, the A laner through and through tier. We have our B tier. It's our boy tier. It's B tier. We've still got the B tier. We've got our C tier, the can't really recommend tier, and then our D tier, our Decidueye Memorial tier. So let me give you a quick rundown of how this tier list is going to look, and I'm going to explain it with a couple Pokemon right here, right off the top. So, Pokemon like Greninja. Let me talk about Greninja. Greninja, I believe, is one of the worst lane Pokemon in the game, while at the same time, Greninja is not one of the worst Pokemon in the game. So, the reason Greninja is so bad, and the reason it's so low on this list is because in lane, so essentially the first 3 minutes, but then kind of moving into the first 5 minutes of the game, are all really dictated, if you're a laning Pokemon, by how well you did in that lane, and then of course how well your jungler did and how well they were able to help out the team. So if you're in lane and you're doing poor for a while because you're a Pokemon that's bad at being in lane, then you will be quite a bit behind and it will just hamper your team for a while. That doesn't mean that eventually Greninja doesn't become an amazing hyper carry, because still, if you're able to pick up a ton of experience, you can become that dominant Greninja later in the game. If you just continue farming, even if you lose your lane early, that can happen. But on this tier list, I'm going to talk about these Pokemon sort of in that broader look at what does it mean by putting them in lane and how does that affect your chance of winning. I hope that kind of makes sense. That's why a Pokemon like this is so low, and now we can see a Pokemon like this is so incredibly high. Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales, by the game's end, is not as good as Greninja. It's just not. It doesn't carry as hard. It does some amazing things. However, when you are comparing the two in lane, it's not even close. Alolan Ninetales is one of the best laners in the game, in my opinion. Not only does it output a ton of damage, not only are you A-pressing the whole time, so you're doing basic attacks that turn into boosted attacks that, shatter off and hit multiple enemies. You're also stunning and freezing, which is kind of essentially in the same camp. You are just a really, really mean Pokemon to deal with. Now, again, as the match goes on, you probably will want a Greninja at the Rayquaza fight, and it's probably, because this is not always the case, you will probably want a Greninja there above a Pokemon like Ninetales. But when we're talking about the lanes, I think Ninetales is amazing. So I hope that quick explanation there makes this tier list make sense as we start going through our Pokemon. Let us continue right here. Okay. We've got Cinderace. Cinderace, another amazing Pokemon, especially as the match goes on. Really experience hungry. Doesn't do well early. You can A-press a lot, which is just a lot of basic attacks. This actually might change a little bit with some of the newer items coming to the game, but for now, Greninja and Cinderace just have a lot of trouble securing last hits in lane, and really until they evolve, they're not really that great. They're not. So it just takes a long time for them to get good. Both of them are going to hang out in our Decidueye Memorial tier. Garchomp. Garchomp is a weird one. I'd say Garchomp C. It's teetering C and B, but the thing is, this Pokemon is just so dang experience hungry. It reminds me a lot of another Pokemon we're going to get to very soon. I actually really like Garchomp. Garchomp's win rate seems to be going up. They gave it some nice buffs. It's not the best Pokemon in the game, but it keeps getting a little bit better. It's taken over a year, but it's actually not doing too bad. That being said, in Path, it's rough. It's rough, it's melee, it doesn't have a good secure, it's low. It's definitely low on our list. Let's see, Gengar. I think Gengar's B. Not too bad. Definitely an experience-hungry Pokemon. Definitely a Pokemon you want to put in the central area if you can, because having a Gengar that is a higher level than the enemy team is like everything. That is everything you need with Gengar. You have to be able to just delete things. But it isn't too bad at getting last hits. It has Will-O-Wisp, which is actually pretty good. You can use Lick to stun your enemies, give you a boosted attack. You can actually make some plays happen. And unlike Pokemon like Greninja and Cinderace, it becomes good at level 5. So you already get something there. And because of that, I'm going to put it B here. Cramorant. Cramorant's either A or S. It might be S. This is really close here. I think Ninetales kind of beats it out a little bit. Cramorant, though, late game beats out Ninetales for the most part. I think both of these Pokemon are really good. I'm going to put Cramorant A. It's extremely strong in lane. It's very, very good. Whirlpool's good. If you're going the dive build, it kind of becomes a little worse in lane for a moment. If you're going the surf build, however, yeah, you're a bit of a lane monster. So this is a laner through and through. Cram is great. Wiggly. This might be a little controversial, but I think Wiggly's actually an S tier laner. It's the point at the game in which it's absolutely the best. It evolves at level 4 and gets one of 2 really good moves. Rollout, supremely underrated, and Sing is just amazing. In lane, these are such difficult Pokemon to deal with. Again, I recognize as the match goes on, they might not have been your top picks, but if you want to be a mean laner, Wiggly is so freaking mean, you could dominate enemies with Wigglytuff. Machamp for me is probably an A. You know, it's interesting because it was bad for a long time at laning, but its Karate Chop is so incredibly strong at securing last hits, and then it becomes level 5. You get that dynamic punch if you're playing how I play. You get that dynamic punch, and you're just great. I don't really like submission as much personally as a build, but if you like that, then you even get that at level 5. It's not too hard to get this Pokemon to level 5, again, because it has this huge burst with last hits, and like a few of the all-rounders we're going to be looking at, it does so well stacking. So if you're great at stacking and you are great with stacking, so your stats do really well with it, I think a lane is a great place for you. Machamp, super solid A tier Pokemon. Absol, this might be a surprising one, but I think it's also A tier. Absol's actually really good in lane. It's one of the speedsters that does super well there. You don't need to put this in the center area to do well. It doesn't have to evolve, so you don't even get gate kept by not getting enough experience and getting a last hit on something. You can actually get to your level 5 just by trickling there if you're kind of getting beat in path or lane. Path is what the game calls it. So I think because of that, Absol is actually really solid, and early crits are super strong. It's not too hard to stack with it. You can get some decent last hits on it. Absol's a pretty solid Pokemon. Slowbro, S, baby. S for sure. So good. Slowbro is so good in lane. Evolves at level 4. Even before that, Water Gun, one of the best early secure moves in the game. Slowbro is amazing. And unlike Ninetales and Wiggly, I say it actually probably scales better than them throughout the game. Not literally stats-wise, but just usefulness-wise. Like its Unite move is amazing. But really good early. Scald or Surf, very good. Mr. Mime, S. No question about it. Doesn't even need to evolve at level 4. Gets Confusion or Psychic if you like that build more at level 4. The combo of its walls and Confusion are insane. Power Swap at level 6. Mime is gross. So gross. Incredible. Venusaur? Venusaur's B. And it's kind of low B. It's B because it's able to secure things with its boosted attack and a little bit with its Razor Leaf, but it's actually not great in lane. And like Greninja and Cinderace, it does need to get to level 7 really before it can really do too much. Once it gets both moves at level 7, it's much better, but its laning phase isn't amazing. It's not super terrible either. I think B tier is very fair. Lucario, S tier in my opinion. It's like Machamp, but it has dashes. It secures even better. At level 5, it's insane. Whether you go power up punch or extreme speed, like extreme speed, if you're level 5 by the time the Altaria spawns in the middle, you're just gonna rip them to shreds. Really strong laning Pokemon. One of the best stacking Pokemon in the entire game. Definitely an S tier choice. Talonflame. Talonflame is high C, low B. It's not terrible. It's better than Garchomp. It is better than Garchomp. It has a little better secure. But the thing about Talon is you're kind of not a laner much, because as soon as you get the option, you're sort of roaming. Talon and Dodrio both sort of fall into this camp where you can play them in lane, but you're kind of going to get the most value out of them by being in lane and then dashing to the enemy central area, then being in lane, central area, kind of like bouncing back and forth. So when your Talon and Dodrio is playing right, I feel like you're making the enemy jungler have a really, really hard time. And that's what you want out of this Pokemon, but it doesn't really feel like you're laning super well. Eldegoss. Eldegoss is A, maybe even close to S right now. It's really good. It's really good. I don't know if my personal preference, I mean, I think it actually might be closer to S, but I'm going to leave it high A for the time being. It's gotten so much better. It evolves at level 4, and I know I'm saying this a lot, but these are huge factors as to whether or not something is good in lane or not, is when they evolve, when they become good, essentially when they power spike. This Pokemon power spikes at 4. Oof. You know what? I actually think I am going to put it S. As a laning Pokemon and you just A-press with it the whole time, you get your level 4. Ah, it's so close. It's so close. I can't decide, honestly. Maybe it's high A for me. I think personal preference, I'm going to leave it high A. That being said, I think this Pokemon's actually freaking amazing right now. Crustle. Crustle is high B or low A. Crustle's actually pretty good. The thing about Crustle is, once again, power spiking at 4, and then once you do, you kind of can do whatever you want with Crustle. Its boosted attack is really strong. It's a lot stronger than people think. It also secures really well. It has good secure moves and a good stun. You know what? I'm putting it A, low A. Really good laner, and it gets its moves early. You know, you get your second move at level 6. So you're looking really good with this Pokemon, and you don't need a ton of experience in other areas to kind of get online and be really solid. Snorlax is S. Well, I don't know. He might be the meanest early lane character in the game. I don't know if anything does what Snorlax does. Truly, like early game, just it's the combo of its tackle and into its boosted is insane. It's so powerful. You can even invade with it. It's so powerful. It's so tanky. It's great. Honestly, great laner. Charizard is B. Charizard used to be lower, but I actually think it doesn't do too bad. It's not that hard to get to level 5, and once you get level 5, you're actually pretty dang useful because you're able to, you know, hit at enemies with your flamethrower or fire punch if that's the build you're going. Some people like to stack on it. I've definitely done it a time or two. If you know me, that's a stack. So I think Charizard is a really good call for lane compared to other Pokemon like Greninja and Cinderace that you would think you need center area. You definitely want center area with Char, but you can actually play this Pokemon in lane and do okay. All right, Pikachu. Pikachu is A or S. It's so good. I think it's S, actually. It's so good. Its A pressing is just brutal. You could secure last hits. You get a move at level 4, both of which are good. Thunder is really good for, you know, kind of zoning enemies out and getting last hits. And then Electro Ball lets you get big KOs. Pikachu is a great lane Pokemon. Really, really good. It's one of those Pokemon that you wish was better late game, kind of like Alolan Ninetales, because it's so freaking good in lane. Zeraora, it's almost, it might be D. It's so low. It's so freaking low. It needs so much XP. The only thing that keeps this C for me, and it's barely keeping it C, is the fact that Zeraora can stack and you get some decent value out of its stacks. I don't know. It has a rough time. It's really low C. It doesn't feel as bad as the others, but boy, it's right there. It's right there. Gardevoir, D. Terrible. Just terrible in lane. It's unfortunate. It needs a stronger early game if it wants to compete in lane. Once it's level 5, it's pretty good. But if you see a Gardevoir on the enemy team, I implore you, put your foot on the gas. It is not dangerous. It is a very, very not dangerous Pokemon when it has not evolved yet. So when it's not even Kirlia, like, it can't do anything. It's just really rough in lane. Really, really rough. It's very rough. And it needs a lot of experience because it's so rough. Blissey is probably S. It's either S or A. It's really high up there. It's secure. Yeah, it's secure is amazing. It's with Pound, you secure. You can stack with it if you want. You don't have to. At level 4, you get a crazy good heal. It's great. It's a great lane Pokemon. And it actually scales into the end game really, really well. It's one of the lane Pokemon that actually does well later. Blastoise is B. And it's low, guys. Blastoise is low, low, low B. It's not great early. It's okay. It reminds me of a lot of these B tier Pokemon, but it's very low. It's like one of the last Pokemon I won in lane. It's one of the issues with Blastoise right now is, yes, it's good once it hits 9, and I love the Pokemon in general, but boy, until it's getting some experience there, it really doesn't stack up against some of these other Pokemon. Although, special attack specs, I like stacking specs on that Pokemon. Mamoswine is S. I think Mamoswine's S. It's so good. It's so good. Laning against Mamoswine's an absolute nightmare. If your opponent knows how to play Mamo, they are just going to make your life a living hell, especially if you're trying to stack. Oh my goodness. All the stuns, all the freezes, the ice shards raining down, the tackle. You could just chase KOs. It's so good. It's such a good lane Pokemon. Sylveon is a weird one. It's A, but it's close to actually not being A. The only reason it's A is because once it's 4, it gets a crazy good move. However, it's kind of terrible until it gets 4. So just prioritize getting your level 4. Once you do that, you're actually a pretty good laner, and you're very, very solid. The thing I think holding it back is its early game is so incredibly weak. You can really punish it, but it evolves at 4. So just prioritize getting your XP, get your level 4, and then you can at least mess with the enemy the entire time. Greedent? Greedent's a weird one. Greedent's good. Dang good. In lane. But you're also kind of like Talon in that you're messing with the enemy a lot. However, you're still really good in lane. I'm going to put it A. I'm going to put it A. That might even be too low. It's really good. It's just really good. It secures really well with tackle. It stacks pretty well. It evolves at 5, but it doesn't get... It feels like it doesn't get an insane power spike until 7. But yeah, Greedent's really good. Like, if you're comparing it to these, and we're not really ordering these, but it's high up there. It's really solid. A really solid laner. Decidueye. Okay, so this is the interesting one, is Decidueye. Greninja, Cinderace, D. Decidueye, the Decidueye Memorial tier, is not where this Pokemon lands. Decidueye is actually kind of B tier. Its basic attack ramps up, and you can actually stop people from stacking sometimes, putting in a lot more damage than they expect. And it has a decent secure move with its area attack. I'm actually blanking on the name right now, that little fan that it does. Why am I... Is it Razor Leaf? It's not Razor Leaf, is it? Maybe... No, because Razor Leaf's its auto attack move. It's Leafage. Duh. Leafage. That actually is a really solid move for securing last hits on wild Pokemon. So while it's not amazing, it actually doesn't make it, oddly enough, into the Decidueye Memorial tier. Zarina. Zarina has a few caveats with it. It's kind of bad in lane, and then it becomes level 6, and it's insane. And it kind of needs the stack. So it's a laner through and through. It is an A tier laner. Now, don't get me wrong. It is going to get schooled by Lucario, Machamp, a lot of the Pokemon you see here kind of beat it up in lane for a while, but it really needs to stack. And once it gets level 6, it is a super solid Pokemon, like so good. All right, Dragonite is C. I can't really recommend it. It's probably better than a lot of these C tier choices, honestly, but it just struggles for a little while. Once it's 5, you know what? The way I feel about Dragonite is about how I feel about Blastoise, so I'm actually going to put it B. I don't love it in lane. You want to play it in the center area if you can. You want to make sure you get to level 8 before the first objective, obviously, especially if you're using Hyper Beam, but either build, you want to evolve as quickly as you can. Luckily, it's not a level 9 evolution, so there's still some daylight there, and actually its level 5 isn't terrible. But yeah, I would say that's probably a fair place for it. Low, low B. Tree's A. Tree's A for sure. It might even be S. Let me think. Geez, it's so good. It's so good that level 4 too. You know what? I do think it's S. I think it's so good. Its level 4 is I'm saying level 4 because even before it evolves at level 5, Will-O-Wisp and Poke, was it Branch Poke? Will-O-Wisp and Branch Poke are both great. You get a ton of health back. You brawl so well, and then at level 5 you're kind of a monster already. So yeah, I'm gonna say it's silly good. It's really, really good. Aegislash. Aegislash is either A or S. It's really solid. It last hits super well. It evolves pretty early and gets good. Not amazing, obviously, until it gets its final evolution, but I think this one's really solid. Like, when I look at this compared to some of the others, it definitely outperforms a few of the Pokemon on this list. I think A is a very solid place in lane for Aegislash. Aegislash is just great. It's just great. So it's weird because its early laning phase is still pretty good. Maybe not Ninetales good, but in general, it's great. And then late game, it just continues to be great. It's a very good Pokemon. Hoopa. Hoopa's really good in lane. Really good. I mean, it's almost S in my mind. It reminds me a lot of Eldegoss. I'm just going to set it right next to it. You A-press a ton. You can secure last hits. You get moves early enough. It's a really solid lane Pokemon, and it really helps out your team. I think it's a really, really great choice. I like it a lot for a lane Pokemon. Duraludon. This is going to surprise some people, but it's A. It's A for sure. It's way better than people think in lane. It's so much better than the other A-pressers like Greninja and Cinderace. Like, you can get crazy easy last hits with its boosted attack, and at the same time, once it gets level 5, it gets a massively good move. So yeah, it's a crazy good lane Pokemon. You don't need the center area with this one. Azumarill. Are you shocked? Now that it evolves at level 4 and it stacks really well and it does insane damage, like, Azumarill is just amazing now, especially in Path. You definitely don't need the central area for this Pokemon at all. Level 4 evolution. Basically, you walk to the other side of the map, you stack twice, and you're already level 4. Like, this Pokemon is crazy good in Path. Espeon, A, for sure. Really good. Really, really good. I think underestimated how good this Pokemon is in Path. It is the only Eevee that has like a pretty good secure early, and then once it evolves, it gets even better. Stored power doesn't work particularly well in lane. It's not the worst thing in the world, but compared to its other option, compared to Psyshock, it's just, one is so much better for laning, but this is a great lane Pokemon. One of the best laning mages for sure. Like, it beats Cram as a mage in the lane, I would say. Well, they're both really close. Cram's better early. Either way, it's really good. Delphox, I do not love Delphox in lane. I think Delphox is fine in lane. If you have to be there, you have to be there. But this Pokemon is sneakily experience hungry. Once it gets level 11, basically, it's the craziest Pokemon in the game. So you want to get that Pokemon fed with a ton of experience early. You also want to get it blue buffs. So this Pokemon can be played in lane. You can last hit with it. It's not the end of the world, but it's not your best choice. Glaceon, B. It's fine. Here's the thing about the difference between Glaceon and Sylveon and Espeon. Glaceon, it doesn't really get good at 4. Like, it kind of does, but it doesn't really get that good at 4. It gets good at 6, and that's a problem for an early laner. So if you have to play it in lane, you'll do okay. It's not the end of the world, but you actually want to play Glaceon in jungle if you can. It's much, much better in jungle. All right, Buzzwole. Buzzwole's B, maybe higher. It's actually pretty good. You know, it's better than a lot of these lane Pokemon that I'm looking at. I think Buzzwole actually really excels in lane, especially because it gets level 5 pretty easily, and its level 5 is mean. Fell Stinger now does way more damage than you think. Like, watch out for a Buzzwole who's just building up its muscle gauge by punching you, because Fell Stinger, it's kind of like psh, little dash attack there. It does a crazy amount of damage. It's actually a pretty dang good laner now. Yeah. Tyranitar. Tyranitar's... It's almost D. It's almost D, but luckily it has better secure than some of these Pokemon. But boy, I really hope you get to play Tyranitar in the central area, because man, this is just such an experience-hungry, mean Pokemon, but it needs experience. It needs a ton of experience. So I highly recommend playing this in the central area if you can. It's so good there. It's not that good in Path. It needs a lot of XP. Mew S for sure. One of the best. One of the best in the game. Maybe the best. I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it. But it's one of the best. Early Solar Beam. Level 5, you could switch moves. If you know how to play a good Mew in lane, you're just so freaking cruel to the enemies. You can deny them so hard. It's just such a good Pokemon. It's honestly, it might be our best one. I haven't decided yet. I've been thinking about it. It might be our God tier Pokemon. Dodrio is actually probably B, maybe even a little higher. It's not bad actually. If you know how to play Dodrio, it's not bad in lane, and it gets really good at 5. Like Talon, however, you kind of leave, and that's a weird position for a laner to be in. You don't have to, but boy, it feels like if you're not harassing the enemy center area with Talon and Dodrio, you're making a mistake. So because of that, I'm gonna say it's B. It just doesn't feel like a laner, but it's actually pretty good. All right, Scissor. Scissor is really solid. I think A is a very fair place to put this Pokemon. It secures last hits really well, and then it evolves, either Scissor or Scyther. Really good in Path, actually. I mean, again, this isn't super intensely ordered, but it's definitely up here with the other all-rounders, and it continues to be good as the match goes on. I like it. I like its last hitting ability, and I like its sustain if you're playing Scissor. And then Scyther is actually really powerful too. Big bursts of damage, so I think a super solid laner, for sure. Clefable is probably low A. It's really solid. It has a great secure move, and it gets good. It gets a good move at 4. It's a little underwhelming as a Pokemon right now. I think they just made it a little too squishy. We'll have to see what they do with that in this update coming up, but I actually think as a laner, it's still a really solid choice. Probably one of the lower tier supports, but it does have an amazing secure move. And finally, Zoroark. Zoroark is B? It's not the worst, honestly. It's all right. It's not where you want it. Look, you want it center because you want to walk to Path at level 5 and use your move. But it actually does a lot of damage early. You can secure some last hits with it. It's just if it gets denied its level 5, it's a little underwhelming. That being said, it won't take you that long to get pretty good. This is high B. As a laner, I'm not in love with it, but it kind of evolves past that so early that I think you can forgive it a little bit. I think B is a safe place to put it. You might even say low A for this Pokemon. All right, now it is time to pick our God tier Pokemon. There are 2 that are in my head, and I'm having a hard time deciding between them. And I'll tell you who they are. It's Mew and it's Mime. So I think both of these Pokemon are insane in lane. They're also insane in the middle of the game and late game. They're insane all the time. Boy, they're both so incredibly mean. I think I'm gonna give the edge. Ooh, this is so hard. Gosh, this is so... I honestly don't know which one's better right now. I think I might leave it. Maybe this is God of War around here, I guess. Yeah, I guess it is. It's God of War around here because our God tier has 2 Pokemon in it. Mew and Mime, I both think are insane laners. A lot of amazing laners on this list, but these 2 really take the cake. I mean, so much damage, so much secure, so incredible. If you're laning against the 2 of them at the same time and you're a bad lane Pokemon, it's just an absolute nightmare. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. And now this. Boo-ba-doo-boo. Ba-doo-doo-doo-doo. So like I was saying, Tyranitar is just so good late that it doesn't matter how it does in lane. That's not the point of this tier list, is how good it is in lane. The point is, how good is this Pokemon even if you play them in lane? And then you have Zoroark, who, if you get your level 5, you can KO an entire enemy team. So just prioritize getting your levels, get them really early, and then you can basically beat anyone. As I said early, Gengar is terrible. You have a few other Pokemon, kind of like Mew has really fallen off. Mime used to be a lot better, but it's kind of fallen off. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see y'all next time. Mwah.